Welcome to the bonfire, unkindled one.
Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello, and welcome back to Everything Possible in Dark Souls 3. Last time we began our adventure in Archdragon Peak, we killed the Ancient Wyvern, and then our adventure was ended by another Wyvern. But today we are going to exact our revenge, but let's take a look at our gear. Still using the Broadsword +8, the Dragon Crest Shield. We have the Alva Helm, Lothric Knight Armor, Nameless Knight Gauntlet, and Leggings. As for rings, we have Havel's Ring, the Life Ring, Lloyd's Sword Ring, and the Hornet Ring. However, I did want to mention something about the Lloyd's Sword Ring and my choice of using the Life Ring. City349, one of our viewers, pointed out that the Sun Princess Ring, which provides passive HP regen, is a great complement to the Lloyd's Sword Ring because it will allow you to get back up to full health anytime you take chip damage, and that is an excellent point. Thank you very much for that. We have our Estus Flask, Green Blossoms, of course our Gold Pine Resin, and bundles. I have the Lightning Arm, but that was actually for something I did off camera, so you can ignore that completely. If you want to take a look at my stats, go ahead and pause the video now. But it is time to head back to Archdragon Peak, and before we go and exact our revenge on that Wyvern who took our life, we are actually going to go back to the arena where we fought the Ancient Wyvern because there is an item that I missed, and it is of vital importance. You are not going to want to miss this. Hopefully you recognize this location. You can see the two dead man serpents in front of me. They are the ones that were clinging to the ceiling just here. And I already actually picked these items up off camera without recording, but I went ahead and dropped them here on this corpse. Very hard to see because of the lighting, but over here you can get 3 dung pies. If you are looking to complete everything possible in Dark Souls 3, you absolutely cannot leave these feces behind. But now, back to the Wyvern at hand. The method that I'm about to show you is something that I actually didn't realize worked until I actually came to fight him a second time, and I am very happy that I discovered it because it works much easier than what I was attempting before. So I am switching back to my longbow. I'm going to change out the Hornet Ring for the Hawk Ring, and in between episodes I did go back and actually get more feather arrows so I can get the increased distance. But honestly, I didn't actually need them because once he lands in this particular spot, there is an area that you can stand, not here, although I am going to take a few shots here, but there's an area you can stand where you can just take free shots at him and he will never move. And I have tested this one other time and it worked then as well. So right at the base of these stairs, as long as he doesn't have a direct line of sight, he can't cast his fire breath, but you can actually sneak arrows around. And once again, if I was using other arrows, this would have gone even faster. But I'm going to go ahead and zoom up the video here because there's no reason you need to watch me shoot about 50 or 60 arrows at this Wyvern's head. But trust me when I say this method works wonders for taking out this Wyvern. And you're about to see exactly why we spend our time actually killing the Wyvern. Because with the Wyvern finally down, we get 36,000 souls, but even more importantly, we get 6 Titanite chunks, 3 Titanite scales, and 3 Twinkling Titanites. Yes, it can be a little bit time consuming, but it is worth it to take him out. Now, other people did provide some other methods of taking him out, including going after the head after you've baited one of his fire breath attacks, and that can work. But as you saw me attempt melee in the last episode, it can be very problematic due to the camera with a large enemy. Getting all of my souls back, nearly 200,000. I'm going to show you a little shortcut in just a moment, but I am going to first take out all of these stone crystal lizards just to show you that it is possible to get Titanite scales. Although I don't really show you as much as tell you because frankly, spoiler alert, I don't get any Titanite scales. But I do fight them a little bit better, as you'll see here. Couple of hits, and go to the side. Couple hits, go to the side. You know, in hindsight, maybe I should have sped this part up, because it is a little bit boring. Although, I guess I am showing you a little bit of strategy here. I'm using fire bombs to pull them using my impeccable manual aiming technique, as you'll see here. Look at that beautiful 38 damage. The reason I'm using firebombs to pull, well, it really doesn't matter what you use to pull, but I recommend that you pull regardless, because if you try to fight multiples, there's a good chance you're either going to get knocked off the cliff or you're going to roll off the cliff. But once again, the strategy is just a couple hits, 2 at the most, and then go to the side. Like I said, impeccable manual aiming. And you actually saw me almost roll up the shortcut. If you don't want to fight these crystal lizards, I don't blame you, and I'm going to show you exactly how to bypass them once I've actually killed them all. Just one more to go here. No reason to pull since he is all by his lonesome. That time you saw I didn't actually go to the side, I rolled right behind him. And if he decides to roll because I did that, I'm gonna be punished. Again. Almost again. But there we go. All of these stone crystal lizards are dead. That is the way forward, but let me go ahead and show you the shortcut. Also, do you really think that I forgot that item back when I was fighting the wyvern? I did, but I did just remember also, so let's go back and grab that. Hanging on this corpse in the archway, we do have a soul of a weary warrior. And now to show you that shortcut that'll save you the trouble of fighting all of those stone crystal lizards. So even though I don't actually take the shortcut, if you go up the path right here, right where that grass is, you can actually avoid fighting all of those stone crystal lizards. So if you don't want to spend the time and fight them like I just did, I don't blame you. Go ahead and take that shortcut. And now we have another one of the man-serpent summoners coming up, and this one's going to spawn a completely different NPC. You can see her straight ahead. So even though she is going to get the summon off, I'm going to rush to kill her first because I don't want her to summon another NPC once I've already dealt with this one. Very easy to take care of when she's all alone. Once again, unfortunately, no Medican Sap. But this is, well, we don't know for sure this is Ricard, but he is using Ricard's Rapier. Now, this NPC summon is very susceptible to stun locking, because as you can see, without wearing any armor and using a dex-based weapon, he's not going to have any of the hyper armor, also known as poise in Dark Souls 3, that we're accustomed to. So just keep hitting that R1 as long as you have the stamina, and you'll be able to take him out relatively easily, or just get the backstab. But with him down, we actually get Ricard's Rapier, a callback to Dark Souls 1 based on an NPC that we fought in Sen's Fortress. Although many of the tales surrounding the prince are questionable, this thrusting weapon suggests that the stories of his graceful technique were in fact true. And the skill is Ricard's Lunge and Press, which we just saw that NPC use a number of times. This weapon is excellent when used with weapon buffs, because the skill will cause it to hit many times in a rapid succession, applying that buff each time. So if you're looking to actually stack something that builds up over time like poison, Ricard's Rapier is actually not a terrible weapon. Moving on, all the enemies in this area are clear. Over to the left is where we're going to fight the second and last boss. To travel the path of the dragon, do not ring the Great Bell. It's kind of interesting that they have these developer messages here. Nothing will remain once the bell is tolled. And the reason I find it interesting is because it actually suggests that you can't ascend the path of the dragon if you pull that bell, and frankly that's just not true. If you do pull that bell first, you can still get the item we're about to get momentarily. Fortunately, we do have another bonfire here, and because we don't have to do any backtracking, it's completely safe to rest here. And from here, we have quite the gauntlet ahead of us. If you want to get everything, including a secret item at the end of this path, there are many man-serpents in the way, including some of the larger varieties. Fortunately, if you'd like, you have some help. And we are going to accept this help from none other than Hawkwood the Deserter, not because we necessarily need it, although we do kind of want it, but because at the very end he shows you how to get the secret item. Not that you guys aren't intelligent and couldn't figure it out on your own, but I figure I'll bring a friend just to show us anyway. So now let's see Hawkwood the Deserter in action. Now, even though it looks like he might be able to solo this gauntlet, I do recommend you stepping in as much as you can, because he can meet his fate very quickly due to getting surrounded. You can see that this is an excellent spot to farm large Titanite shards. Also, grab this large soul of a crestfallen knight and be careful to not miss any of the shinies. Just like the dung pies we saw at the beginning of this episode, the lighting can be so brutal in this area that the shinies actually are a bit hard to see. You can see as you approach, even more man serpents come through that archway. Luckily, Hawkwood is going to take care of some of those smaller ones, and we'll deal with this larger one. Now, it was mentioned on the last video that people were having a hard time with some of these large man serpents, and I don't blame you. They're very, very tough. What I recommend, even though I do have a good shield, is to dodge like you're seeing here. The reason is, their hits will take out so much stamina off of your high stability shield that it's just not worth it in order to block. I recommend rolling. Typically, they only have 2 or 3 hit combos, and then you can get in, get your couple of hits, hopefully get the stagger, and then just rinse and repeat until they're dead. Also, Gold Pine Resin and bundles would have made this a lot quicker. This portion can get especially hairy once you actually have the 2 large man serpents, and this is why having Hawkwood is not a bad idea. I would like to say that he does the bulk of the damage, but really, I just kind of consider him cannon fodder at this point. But maybe that's okay. You can see that the one in the back does have the axe on the chain. That is the one that you have to worry about if you give him too much distance. It's actually better to hug him if you can. Not a literal hug. Unfortunately, they don't have that emote. You can see there I just got guard broken because I tried to block that attack. But that is the last of the man serpents. Just be sure to go back and clean up any of the shinies they may have dropped. Hopefully I'll be back for that later. And now Hawkwood is actually running all on his own. If you just stand still, he will continue running up this path, and he's going to show you what we need to do in order to get the super secret dragon item at the end. Sorry, Rockpile. And if we just follow suit, sit in the path of the dragon gesture, we get the Twinkling Dragon Torso Stone. Now, we have already seen the dragon stones before, but the Twinkling variety is the upgraded version. Let's take a look at the description quickly. Stone imbued with the power of the everlasting dragons offered to a towering dragon. This stone shows signs of a nascent light. Gain the torso of a dragon and roar alongside an Archdragon Mirage. The transformation is irreversible until death, yet true imitation will require a dragon head as well. You do have to remove all of your armor, but once you use this, as the description implies, you will actually take on the form of a dragon, and you will actually gain a dragon roar if you were to use it again. Taking a look straight ahead, we can actually see who we were just praying to while we were sitting in the path of the dragon, and that is the corpse of one of the old everlasting dragons, back from the time of Lord Gwyn. With all these enemies dead, let's go ahead and make sure we collect the rest of the loot that we may have missed, including one particular piece of loot that is absolutely vital to every character that plays this game. And no, I'm not talking about dung pies. This time I'm being rather serious. Nothing over here to the left, although I feel the need to check anyway. Let's just say that I was just proving to you there was nothing over there. Do be careful, because there is a stone crystal lizard here who can and will knock you off the cliff if given the opportunity. Luckily by now we know how to fight them pretty easily. Testing out a charge R2 there, it actually does less damage than 2 R1, so really not worth the time investment. dead. Unfortunately, still not drop a scale, but over here on this corpse, we get the Dragon Chaser's Ashes. When given to the Shrine Handmaid, this will actually unlock Titanite chunks, Twinkling Titanite, and Titanite scales for sale, which is excellent. Umbral Ash of the Fallen Warrior who chose the path of the Ancient Dragons. I'm not sure whose hand this is to represent. If you guys have any theories, let me know. Do not hit backstep when coming out of a menu. This has been your PSA. Oh good, I didn't forget. Large Titanite shard here. I always run over the corpses just to see if it prompts me. There's another large Titanite shard. And another. And another. Like I said, if you want to farm large Titanite shards, this is a great place to do it because not only will you get several shards, you'll also get a lot of souls in the process too. Now we can't actually progress any further this way, but over here in this corpse, don't forget to come down here and grab yourself a free ember. But now we actually have to square off against Havel once more. And yet again, just showing you no items. It's kind of like a magician. There's nothing up this sleeve. That was terrible. Probably going to cut that out. We do have one more stone crystal lizard here. I'm not really sure why they put him right here. If they had just put him a little bit further, maybe behind the chest, it would have surprised a lot more players, I think. I don't know why I'm trying to give FromSoft more ways to kill us. One more hit ought to do it. There we go. We do have this chest over here. Chain curls around, so it's not a mimic. And inside we get 3 Twinkling Titanites. Like I said at the beginning of last episode, Archdragon Peak is notorious for being a haven for upgrade materials. Not only do you collect a lot on the bodies, but the farming can be very rewarding too. Here you see another wyvern dead, this time at the hands of our beloved Havel the Rock, or at least one of his warriors. Here I am thinking I can be smart and getting the backstab. But not so much. Now, since we've already seen this fight before, I'm not going to make you sit through the entirety of it yet again. I am going to jump cut towards the end of the fight. The method is still the same. Get a couple of hits in, back up, and just repeat and keep him stun locked as much as you can. Do note, however, due to his heavy armor and the large dragon tooth, he does have hyper armor on many of his attacks. Now, if you did not get Havel to be summoned by the Man-Serpent Mage earlier, this is also when you would get Havel's Great Shield and the Dragon Tooth. But since we have already killed him, we just get some souls, but more importantly, we get access to the item that he was guarding. And that item is none other than a Titanite slab. Since there are a finite number of these in the game, this is something you are not going to want to miss. But we have actually cleared all of Archdragon Peak. We've collected all the loot, we've killed all the enemies, but we do have one final boss. And I know that most of you already know who that boss is, but I'm going to show you how I take him on, and then we're actually going to discuss a little bit of the lore surrounding him, because he is quite possibly one of the most interesting lore-heavy bosses in all of Dark Souls 3, in my opinion. And instead of heeding the warnings from the developers, we're going to go ahead and pull this lever and ring that giant bell. there are honestly not too many introductions to bosses in the Dark Souls series that are as epic as that one. Watching the storm clouds come in and completely envelop the arena, and then as you hop down, you actually find yourself walking on these newly formed clouds. I don't know, there's something regal about it. Before we traverse the fog, we will quickly just change up some of the consumables, changing out the fire bombs for the charcoal pine bundle and leaving the gold pine bundle. And as we step in, we can see the boss riding in on the Storm Drake. The first time that I saw this, I was absolutely in awe. So as you can see, we have the King of the Storm, but riding on top is this other enemy. And as you can probably already guess, this is a two-stage fight. First we have to take care of the King of the Storm, and then we'll finally confront the Nameless King. As you can see here, just like the other wyverns that we fought, attacking the legs is almost useless. So instead, see if you can bait the fire attack, use your gold pine bundle, and do massive damage right to his head region. Anytime you fly straight up, just run away as far and as fast as you can. Just once again showing you the very little damage that you will do on his legs. If you can get enough hits on the King of the Storm's head, you will actually knock him down into a stagger animation, and you will be able to get the critical attack for massive damage. The biggest threat is actually not the King of the Storm himself, but rather the Nameless King that sits upon him. Armed with his Dragon Slayer's sword spear and that immense range that it offers, the timing of the dodging of his attacks is a little bit later than you would think. But once again, if you stand under his head, you can often bait this fire attack and you will get multiple hits in before he actually stops. You may also notice that I performed this fight unlocked in this phase. I actually do recommend locking on, even though I don't do it here, simply because I learned after this fight that it's much easier to stay locked on. Most of his moves are easy to do without locking on, but there's one in particular that you're going to see right here that it is definitely preferred to have a lock on, so you can always have an eye on the King of the Storm. When he is flying in a circle, you have to dodge not only the lightning spear, but also the sword spear's attack right at the end. You can see the King of the Storm does go down relatively quickly as long as you can continue to focus on his head. Here we go with another Fire Breath attack, use our Gold Pine Bundle. And that's it for the King of the Storm. Phase 1 is complete. Unfortunately for us, Phase 1 was the easy part. In a move extremely reminiscent of the Ornstein and Smough fight from Dark Souls 1, the Nameless King has just actually imbued himself with the power of the King of the Storms. And now we finally fight the Nameless King face to face. His opening attacks are typically these wind-based attacks that you see here. The overhead, you should dodge to the side, but this long horizontal sweeping motion, you should actually dodge right through it. Now for the most part, I am not going to be blocking his attacks, so I do two-hand my weapon to get a little bit more damage. Now in Phase 1, the King of the Storm being a dragon-type enemy, he is weak to lightning, he is also weak to magic. The Nameless King, however, using lightning on the offensive, is not weak to lightning, but he is relatively weak to fire. Likewise, he can be staggered, so you see that I use a charcoal pine bundle just before getting the riposte to get that little bit boost of damage. Also, as soon as he's coming up, be sure you get those free hits in. I definitely recommend locking onto this fight because you want to stay focused on him at all costs. Even though sometimes he will dash away and break the lock on, you can get it back relatively quickly. Now this move right here when he charges his sword spear, this dodge is way more delayed than you originally think, and you see that I completely forgot the dodge timing and I did get hit there. You're going to see that move again momentarily, and you'll see me successfully dodge it. Do not let him get that stab off, by the way. That is a great way to take a lot of damage very quickly. Do watch out for some of those wind attacks. Even though they don't do a lot of damage, they will knock you off your feet most often. Here's the charged sword spear attack. And you actually dodge about a half a second after he casts it into the air. Getting that timing down is extremely beneficial in learning this fight. Now, even though this is true of every fight in Dark Souls' existence, you cannot get greedy. 1-2 hits at the maximum before you start dodging again. You'll see here when he does that overhead slam with lightning into the ground, you do want to back up and then be prepared to dodge the shockwaves that emanate from it. Once again, charged sword spear. Dodge at the last second. He doesn't often do that foot slam, but when he does, that is something you do want to roll directly away from. Try to stay close to him. You don't want to give him the opportunity to do some of these dashing attacks, because not only can they be difficult in order to dodge, but you want to stay close so you can get the hits in just as soon as he's done attacking. One more stagger and critical later, and just a few more hits, and the Nameless King has been defeated. The air of fire destroyed, and we get the soul of the Nameless King, and then the arena will go back to the way we found it. And now with our feet finally back on solid ground, we do have a bonfire that we can light. We are over 300,000 souls deep. And now we have some discussion regarding the Nameless King. We did just get the soul of the Nameless King, and just who is this Nameless King, or who was this Nameless King? Well, the community was actually pretty quick to start putting some things together. For example, in Dark Souls 1, the description of the Sunlight Metal says that the sun's firstborn, Gwyn's firstborn, lost his deity status and was expunged from the annals. Now, we don't know exactly why his name was expunged, but we do know that every record of the Lord's firstborn were removed from Anor Londo. And from the Ring of the Sun's Firstborn that we pick up here in Dark Souls 3, we know that this same sun was also a god of war. And when we finally read the Soul of the Nameless King, which we will do momentarily, we learn that the Nameless King was a former dragon-slaying god of war. So just from putting those few things together, the community believes, as I do as well, that the Nameless King was actually the Lord Gwyn's firstborn son. But we'll talk more about that momentarily. First, we do have some loot to get. Right here in this very first corpse, we have another Titanite slab. And right here in this corpse, we get the entire Dragon Slayer armor set, the helm, armor, gauntlets, and leggings. And even more telling, on this corpse, we get the Dragon Slayer spear. But before we take a look at the Dragon Slayer equipment, let's take a look at the soul of the Nameless King. The Nameless King was once a dragon-slaying god of war before he sacrificed everything to ally himself with the ancient dragons. If there was ever a reason that Lord Gwyn would actually disown his firstborn son, would erase his very name from the records of his family history, it would be that his own flesh and blood actually abandoned his own people and sided with the dragons. The very same creatures that Lord Gwyn himself, the Witches of Isolith, the Dark Lord Nito, and even Seath the Scaleless fought so hard against. It is certainly not hard to see just why Lord Gwyn may want to forget about the very existence of his firstborn. But in order to further cement the idea that we just fought Lord Gwyn's firstborn, let's take a look at the Dragonslayer armor. Golden Lion Helm associated with Dragonslayer Ornstein from the Age of Gods and imbued with the strength of lightning. In the Dragonless Age, the knight who long guarded the ruined cathedral left the land in search of the Nameless King. So Ornstein actually left Anor Londo in search of the Nameless King. Why would he have to do that unless the Nameless King actually originated from the Land of Gods, Anor Londo? Then of course we have Ornstein's weapon, the Dragonslayer Spear. Now this weapon cannot be buffed or infused, it is upgraded with Twinkling Titanite, and the skill is Lightning Charge. You actually use the spear to charge at your enemy, and if you use the heavy attack a second time, you will actually shoot a bolt of lightning at the enemy as well. You can see here it does have both physical and lightning damage, and the lightning damage has a descaling at base level in Faith. Crossbeam associated with Ornstein the Dragonslayer, a weapon of the gods imbued with the strength of lightning. Now before we actually head to the next area, because even though we're done with Archdragon Peak, we do have some other items that we can now collect based on the events that have unfolded. I do want to actually talk a little bit more about the Nameless King. Now, I'm not a lore expert by any stretch of the imagination, but the one thing that people started discussing immediately after realizing that this is quite possibly Lord Gwyn's firstborn was, what is the actual identity? Do we possibly have a name for the Nameless King? And the most intriguing theory that I've read, and I'm not going to actually outline every point here in this video, I am going to link to a Reddit post that'll help elucidate the point a lot better, but I believe that the name of the Nameless King may actually be Faram. And if that name sounds at all familiar, it is because we actually have an armor set, the Faram armor set, that we've seen in both Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. Once again, if you want to read more about it, I will put the post in the description of this video because I find it to be incredibly interesting, and I highly encourage you to read it, but also share your theories in the comments below, and let's have a great discussion on this amazing boss, the Nameless King. Completely ignoring this man-serpent mage, I'm going to head to the bonfire and we're going to head to the next leg of our journey. Now we're not going to head back to Firelink Shrine just yet. Instead we're going to head to Osiris the Consumed King's bonfire because we do have some loot that we can grab just after his boss arena because we defeated a certain enemy here. From this bonfire we just head straight back through these doors, and we're going to head to the corpse that actually held the Path of the Dragon gesture previously. Don't forget, of course, we do have a one-man serpent in the way. But we've dealt with enough of these recently, and now we can see a new shiny awaits, and it is the entire armor set of the Drakeblood Knights. This armor was first featured in Dark Souls 2, and it is one of the best looking armor sets in all of the games. Armor of the Drakeblood Knights, worshippers of the blood of dragons. The red cloth is said to symbolize their yearning for blood. Dragon worship has captured the hearts and minds of warriors across the lands for many ages. Perhaps such warriors are attracted to doctrines of few words. Now the Drakeblood Knights actually have some more interesting and deep lore than this armor set would actually describe to us. We know that the Drakeblood Knights were led by Sir Yor, who actually led the fight against Sin, who we fought in the Dark Souls 2 DLC, Crown of the Sunken King. The Drakeblood Knights, along with Sir Yor, believed that dragon blood granted a true understanding of life. This armor set will only appear on the corpse as long as you've killed the Drakeblood Knight in Archdragon Peak at least once. Speaking of killing a particular enemy in Archdragon Peak to get their armor set, we have one more armor set to get, and we're going to go to the Old Wolf of Farron bonfire. If you recall, just at the top of this elevator, we fought a demon earlier. This demon was old and decrepit and actually falling apart as long as you attacked the legs enough. He used a pyromancy called Boulder Heave, and when we actually brought his soul to Ludlith back in Firelink Shrine, we were able to turn it into Havel's Ring. So my question for all of you is, exactly what is the connection between Havel the Rock and this demon that we fought up on this bridge. And the reason that I say that there is a connection is because, as I just mentioned, yes, we could get Havel's ring from transposing the demon's soul, but also, this corpse with a shiny has now appeared, and on this corpse we get Havel's armor set. Armor as if hewn from a giant boulder, highly protective but excessively heavy. The warriors who followed Havel the Rock never flinched nor retreated from battle, crushing any foe that stood in their way. Just as we've been discussing the other lore points in this video, I would love to hear your own theories as to what is the connection between Havel the Rock and the demon that we fought here previously. But now, we can finally go back to Firelink Shrine, but we're still not done. Before we even take a look at what we can get with the soul of the Nameless King, let's go and give the Dragon Chaser's ashes to the Shrine Handmaid.
Met, Ashen One. How may I be of service? Gracious, passing fine ash thou'st given. Let this ash bestow nourishment. I only hope these new wares content thee.
As I mentioned previously, giving the Dragon Chaser's ashes will unlock Titanite chunks, Titanite scales, and Twinkling Titanite available for purchase in unlimited quantities. Because we can now buy Titanite, Large Titanite, and Titanite chunks in unlimited quantities, if you have 213,600 souls to spare, you can get any weapon that is upgraded with normal Titanite up to +9. Now, while we were in Archdragon Peak, we actually ran into Hawkwood the Deserter, but he's not here in the shrine. Let's see if Andre has anything to say about that.
That crestfallen ass Hawkwood, he handed me this. He's changed a great deal since he left this place. Graven of face, he asked me to give it ye.
You'll have to forgive Andre, I failed to mention to him that this was a family-friendly video. But we get Hawkwood's Swordgrass. Bloodstained Swordgrass of Hawkwood, Deserter of the Undead Legion. Traditionally, the Undead Legion of Farron sends the gravest of messages using Swordgrass. Come to the mausoleum in Farron. Only one can take the path of ancient dragons. Well, I think it's clear where we need to head next. So let's head to the bonfire where we fought the Abyss Watchers, and see if Hawkwood wants to have a conversation with us. And as we turn around, there he is, waiting patiently, and he mentioned something about only one being able to take the path of the dragon, much like the Highlanders.
I should have known. Well, I've decided to stop running from my fate. Loathe me all you like. I shall take what makes you dragon.
And if you fail this fight, which I'm going to do, he will actually take that which makes you dragon. I just wish he could do it a little faster.
Loathe me all you like. But I am the true dragon.
Twinkling Dragon Torso Stone now belongs to the champion, and if you want to get it back, as well as the other piece of the Twinkling Dragon Stone, we now need to defeat him. The sad reality is that he almost kills me as quickly when I'm actually trying to kill him than he did when I did nothing at all.
What is rightfully mine?
I would say that the fight with Hawkwood the Deserter is one of the more difficult NPC fights in the game, and it's actually about as difficult as it is to fight the actual Abyss Watchers, which makes complete sense because Hawkwood was a member of the Abyss Watchers some time ago. This is another fight where, even though I have a shield, it is probably best not to use it. You'll take so much stamina damage from actually blocking his attacks that finding the stamina to actually attack afterwards is going to be tough. He can be parried, he can be backstabbed, he can also be stun locked as long as you can stay close enough to continue hitting him. It is possible to also miss the parry. You can see that I have him below half health, but unfortunately, Hawkwood is a filthy chugger. Now you may be wondering, Blue, why didn't you actually get the riposte? Clearly it's because I felt really terrible for parrying Hawkwood. It also might have something to do with because I only got a partial parry, it exhausted all of my stamina when he actually hit my shield. It's also possible to miss the backstab. I did call these videos the Everything Possible series for a reason. It was at this point that I decided I should use the Gold Pine Bundle. That way, while I'm buffing, he can get some free hits in. Let this be a lesson to all of you people who like to fish for the parry in PvP. This should be what happens to you. Finally a successful parry. And some solid damage, but the fight is not over yet. If any of you have any actual strategies for this fight, I would love to hear it. Because as much as I like to practice these fights before I actually record them, I truly have no idea how to strategically fight Hawkwood.
You are a dragon. More dragon than I.
I actually didn't know that there were different levels of dragon, but we get the Twinkling Dragon Torso Stone back, but we also get the Twinkling Dragon Headstone. Now presumably, the Twinkling Dragon Headstone is actually what Hawkwood gained when he used the Path of the Dragon gesture at the end of the path in Archdragon Peak. Here I am actually equipping the 2 Dragon Stones because I want to show you exactly what happens when you use them. I've removed all of my armor. First, the Twinkling Dragon Headstone. We have the beautiful emaciated deer look. And with the Twinkling Dragon Torso Stone, the transformation is complete. Now in what world this looks like a dragon is beyond me. But if we use the headstone again, we actually gain the head of the dragon and we can breathe fire, and if we hold the action button down, we can continue to breathe fire just so long as we have stamina. And if we use the Torso Stone while we are in full dragon form, we gain these 2 large and impressive dragon hands that slam down in front of us. Now there is a slight damage boost when you are in dragon form, but trust me when I say it is minuscule to the point where being in this form is largely for comedic effect. Please, don't run around as an emaciated deer. This has been another public service announcement. But it is almost time to wrap up, so let's go back to Firelink Shrine and talk to Ludleth and see what we can create using the Soul of the Nameless King.
Aha, thou'rt returned, and a fine day it is. So, happened upon any...
The first item we can get is a miracle, the Lightning Storm. Once a slayer of dragons, the former king and war god tamed a storm drake on which he led a lifetime of battle. This miracle is likely a tale of their bond. This miracle will summon lightning that crashes down and causes electricity to sprawl along the ground wherever your enemy that you're targeting is. If you don't have an enemy selected, it will just do it at a predetermined range. Be warned that this does take 45 faith in order to cast and will take up 2 attunement slots. We can also get the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear. A dragon hunting weapon from the Age of the Gods, the earliest form of the crossbeard that we know Dragon Slayer Ornstein used to use, serving as both sword and spear. Its owner was the Nameless King and deific hunter of dragons. The sword spear is imbued with lightning, of which he was the heir. The Falling Bolt skill is one of the coolest skills in the entire game. just like the Nameless King was using against us, the Falling Bolt skill will cause a bolt of lightning to strike down where your enemy is, but it also gives you a temporary lightning buff to your weapon.
Do not be away over long.
And I should have showed this the last time we were in Firelink Shrine. I talked this shrine handmade, but with the Nameless King defeated, we can now buy his entire armor set. And if you take a look at the golden crown, if this doesn't look like the hair belonging to Lord Gwyn, well, I fear you're not looking carefully enough. Because it even states this golden crown, buried amidst long strands of bristling ash, is said to closely resemble that of the First Lord. And this point is even reiterated with the golden bracelets. These golden bracelets, together with the golden breastplate and crown, are said to closely resemble those of the First Lord. If there was ever any doubt in your mind as to the identity of the Nameless King, please put it to rest. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of Everything Possible in Dark Souls 3. I hope you learned something, and if you did, please leave me a comment below and tell me exactly what you learned. Also, don't forget to put your lore theories down there as well. And if I missed something, you have to put that comment as well so we can all keep learning. But I thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.